day, martial world. My name is Michelle Manu, and you're watching the Masters Hall of Fame World News. Today we're joined by Thomas Forman, a 2014 alumni of the Masters Hall of Fame. Sensei Forman joins us today from Montrose, Colorado. He is the founder of Valhalla Security Consulting and leads the Wounded Warrior Combat Cane Training. He is an anti-terrorism officer, P.O.S.T. SWAT, and tactical medic, a self-defense, firearms, and combat cane instructor. Sensei Forman's company, Valhalla Security Consulting, is a professional, highly skilled, and effective security consulting firm whose personnel have decades of experience in protecting people, places, and assets from security threats. Valhalla specializes in bringing potential security weaknesses to light and making practical suggestions about how to eliminate them or avoid having them exploited. The Wounded Warrior Combat Cane Training is a program that helps with physical rehabilitation, builds morale among disabled veterans, allows wounded warriors to maintain partial or full active duty service, and fully empowers veterans to remain warriors. Well, Sensei Forman, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, it's very exciting, and what you do is very serious work. And you have been training in combat systems for a very long time. What has that progression been like for you? What arts have you studied, and what do you find most effective?
Well, this year is my 40th anniversary in the martial arts.
Goodness.
And I started out in 1974 with Ed Parker's Kempo. And I studied Kempo for several years until my father told me that if I ever hit my sister, that he'd take it out on me. So then I switched to judo.
Okay.
And I studied judo for a bit. I got more interested in high school sports with football and wrestling. So I went back doing kickboxing and Kempo because it took less time than the judo and beat me up a lot less for high school football. Progressed through and just kept training. My sophomore year of college, I got recruited out of college into professional wrestling.
Excellent.
And after a year on the circuit doing professional wrestling, I got recruited into bare knuckle fighting. And that was an evolution for me. That's when I realized that formal martial arts training and discipline was great training and discipline, but when it came right down to somebody trying to rip your head off, you needed to get a little bit deeper involved. Yes. So I supplemented my training and really concentrated on Lima Lama and Muay Thai. Okay. And between the Lima Lama and the Muay Thai, it really helped me with these single elimination bare knuckle tournaments. Because it dealt more with faster action and eliminating the opponent instead of just winning. Once I retired, I trained in Shaolin Chin Na and got quite a bit into joint locks, restraints, and more of the body systems. I supplemented that, became a master in Iron Palm Kung Fu in the Shaolin form, and then started training in Hapkido.
Okay. Oh my goodness. You just keep going and going.
Listen, this is what happens when you retire and you have a lot of free time.
It's excellent.
When I was doing the Hapkido, I dislocated my hip. Oh. And the instructor that had done it felt really bad about that, and so did I. And he decided to teach me Jong Sul. Okay. And this was in 1994. And I'd never heard of Jong Sul. Jong Sul is the Korean hooked cane fighting form. And the first 30 minutes of the first lesson I had, I said, this is the most brilliant thing I can ever see. Because this is a 3-foot stick that I can legally carry anywhere in the world. So I spent the next 2 years engrossed in nothing but cane fighting, hanbo, jo, any stick form I could find. And came up with a system, my system, Warrior Combat Cane, and started teaching in 1996. And I had a few customers, and most people were not interested because I don't want to carry a cane. It makes me look so old. You know, I taught some elderly people and at senior homes and convalescent homes and things. Nobody really had a big interest, but I did. So I kept finding more and more eclectic systems. I actually found an American cane fighting system. I found the original manual that was published in 1912.
Oh my.
And
Wow.
researched as far back as I could. When 9/11 happened, Valhalla, my training center, had been open already for over a year. And Valhalla was built as a reality-based training facility for shooters. Live fire defensive tactics with a firearm. And after 9/11, the cane business exploded because we had executive travelers, their families, people that wanted to have a weapon, a self-defense tool that they could take with them on the airplane,
knew how
not
to
just
use it.
not just check it in the luggage and get it when they got to the other side. And so since the events of 9/11, I've taught thousands of students in my Warrior Combat Cane system. Lloyd's of London actually lowered several companies' kidnap and ransom insurance if their corporate executives trained in my system and carried my canes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I ended up, Cartier is one of my customers, Bank of America, Texas Instruments. These are all corporations that sent their traveling executives to us, and now their executives are carrying canes when they travel.
That is just so exciting. And that was actually my next question is, your company deals with so many high-risk threats, and you're involved with such great clientele. What are some of the most threatening assignments that you've had in the past? And I mean, if you can share them.
Well, it's an interesting progression. Our company started out primarily training the protectors. We started training as far as training law enforcement and then training security personnel and training those individuals that are hired to protect others. What I realized was there was a real step missing. And the step that was missing was, what is the client supposed to do? So if you have a high threat client and there's an attempted kidnapping or assassination and the protective detail goes into action, nobody was training the client. Nobody's teaching the client what to do.
Oh.
So what we started doing was incorporating simultaneous training. We would take a security detail in one part of Valhalla and train the security detail on how to run their formations, how to do their defensive tactics and shooting and escape patterns. At the same time, we were teaching the clients how to use a firearm, how to use a cane, how to use a short knife, how to do things to defend themselves, situational awareness for the clients themselves, to make these teams work better. The common complaint I always got from people we trained was the client doesn't listen. And the common complaint you always get from the client is, these security guys, they don't listen. When you put them all together and make them listen together during a threat situation, they become a team. So we run a lot of force-on-force scenarios. So we have attackers attacking these teams in Valhalla, and these teams have to get out using live fire performance, using their guns and tactics in order to escape and evade. In doing that, we've shifted a lot more to training clients.
That's fantastic.
Training people that can't afford a protective detail or even a security guard. One of the more disturbing ones that we have as a family, we were training the husband and wife, nice people,
Sure.
Upper middle class. They wanted to learn defensive shooting. Well, it became very apparent that they had more security problems than they were telling me.
Sure.
Then they asked if I would train their daughter, who was about 30, in our women's assault prevention program. I said, sure. She came in, and after about 3 minutes, I said, we're going to stop playing games. What's going on?
Yeah.
They had a credible threat against their family from a stalker of hers since college.
Oh my goodness.
She had changed her name and moved to another state. The family had changed their identities, moved to another state, and this individual kept tracking them down. So at that point, our security teams that we have on site in my employ went and found him.
Did you have a talk with him?
We found him and we coordinated the FBI taking him down.
Fantastic.
So that's an extreme end. But on the better end, we've really helped the industry get to the point that it's not the security and the client, it's a team.
How did that family react to your efforts to assist them with capturing a stalker? I mean, it's not fun to be prey.
Well, they were more relieved that, one, they could confide the whole story, and because the FBI was involved and had relocated them and was helping them and trying to pursue this individual. They were relieved and grateful that their daughter got the training she needed, that they got the training that they needed. We went to their home, we resecured their homes and showed them how to actually shoot through their homes and defend their homes.
And have peace.
And all of that training empowered them with a tactical readiness that let them relax a little bit more in life. And then once the individual was eliminated.
Yeah. Wow, thank you for sharing that. Well, we have the U.S. military that requests your assistance with teaching the wounded warriors on how to use the cane. I was wondering if you might explain to our audience exactly what is taught in the project,
right.
the program, and how it's really truly affected the lives of wounded warriors.
It's been a great process. In 2004, 2005, but we started training the military in 2003 for Afghanistan and Iraq, and primarily Army Special Forces and Naval Special Warfare. They would come to us and say, this is the mission we have to take. We would set up the training, we would train them for the mission, they would go do the mission. And we did that very successfly from 03 to 08. And it just happened by happenstance that I ran into the commanding general of the 1st Marine's wife. And she does a lot of work with the Semper Fi Fund and the Wounded Warrior Regiment of the Marine Corps. So she asked me if I could get involved teaching combat cane, my system, to the wounded Marines. So the first event I did for them was down at Camp Pendleton 4 years ago. And they were a little hesitant. Cane fighting, we don't get it, what are you going to do, we don't understand. And after the first event, the staff sergeant in charge came up to me immediately and said, can you come back next week?
It was highly effective.
And I said, sure. And so for the first year, I traveled Camp Pendleton, 29 Palms, Brooks Army Medical Center, the Naval Hospital down in San Diego, and taught my Warrior Combat Cane system to any of the groups that wounded them wanted it. And after the first year, my wife said, we can't afford this because we were giving them the canes, we were donating the canes, donating my time. So now we are part of a nonprofit. Excellent. And people donate the canes, and I still donate all my time and all the training. And we're traveling and teaching these guys. It's completely empowering. Some of these guys coming back and some of the women coming back will never be able to walk again properly. Some of them won't ever be able to walk again.
Period.
Ever. I have been training the broad spectrum, from absolutely no physical damage at all, just slight PTSD, to massive traumatic brain injuries with paralysis, to triple amputees. What I told the commanding officer of the Wounded Warrior Regiment at Marine Headquarters in Quantico, I said, the first thing it's going to do is boost morale.
Absolutely.
The second thing it's going to do is it's going to get these guys exercising, because it's not go to physical therapy, it's go do your martial arts.
Yeah, it's purpose.
And these are warriors. They don't want to go bounce a ball. They would like to go practice striking and takedowns and the things that remind them that they are still warriors. Doesn't matter the wounds they've suffered.
That's true.
And so you got the morale, you got the physical rehab. Interesting thing is, the military or the federal government provides canes that are standard issue. Well, that means if you're over 6 feet tall, the cane they issue you is too short. And if you use a cane that's too short, you hurt your back. Or whatever they have replaced gets ground down. So not only am I providing the training, I get calls literally 3 or 4 times a week from different Marine bases and hospitals saying, we just got a guy came in, he's 6'3", can you get us a cane? And we get the canes made, and we're just shipping them the canes that they should be issued by the government. We're giving them to them. But I'll tell you one of the greatest things that happened. I was down at the Naval Hospital in San Diego, and this young man came in, and he had just had both of his legs amputated. And he'd had multiple surgeries, and he's terribly depressed, and he came in his wheelchair, and he said, I don't know why I'm here, I can't do anything. I said, were you ordered to be here? Yes, sir. I said, then shut up. And I handed him the cane. And he just kind of did the motions and he didn't want to be anywhere. And I teach a defense against a low block, where you just take the cane and you don't brace, but you strike.
Sure. Using
the shark's teeth on the shaft, and you strike, hit the offending either fist or knife or knee that's coming in on you. Well, he'd done everything kind of less than half speed the whole day, so I don't wear a lot of padding. And
you really don't need to.
Well, and so I did an uppercut, and I wasn't really paying attention. He did the block, and I turned to the next guy, and I had them on the basketball court in their gymnasium there, just in a circle, and I was working with 14 of them in a circuit. Man. And I turned to the next guy, and the next guy, his eyes got kind of big, and he's looking at me, and everything very quiet. And I looked, and he had busted my forearm open, and I'm bleeding all over the basketball court. And there's blood dripping, and I turned around, I saw this. He had put the brakes on in his wheelchair, he had propped himself up, and he's holding his cane. And he's waiting for the next round to see what we were doing next. And that was why I do this, because it changed his entire perspective on himself, on what he can still do, even though he's been injured. And then one other kid, the first time I was down at Camp Pendleton, they brought him in. He'd literally lost half his head in an IED. And they brought him in, and they sat him in a chair. I knew he didn't know where he was. He could barely walk, and I took the cane, I put it in his lap. Because he was part of the class. We gave him a chair, and he sat there through the whole thing. He couldn't move, he couldn't talk, fairly well paralyzed, and they weren't sure how much brain damage he had. 3 years later, so this was last March, he came up to me, and he was still partially paralyzed on the left side because his brain injury was on there. And he came up to me, still had the cane. He walked up to me, and he said, do you remember me? And I said, absolutely. And he said, now let's take the class. So here's a kid that's been down there for 3 years. He's had over 30 surgeries. He kept that cane with him the entire time. Every hospital they sent him to, every place he went, because he was bound and determined. He said that he heard everything I said that first day, but he couldn't talk, he couldn't move, and he held onto that cane till the day he could take the class.
That's just so powerful.
So to date, I've trained over 400 wounded and veterans, because I've been working with several VA hospitals, and I just plan to keep going.
Oh, you're amazing, Tom. Well, another cane master that you've worked with is our own Mark Shuey,
yes.
Another Masters Hall of Fame alumni. And I was wondering, when did you meet and when did you start working with Mark?
When I started in Jiangsu, I kept buying drugstore canes, and these canes that kept snapping in half and not working. And I grew up in North Hollywood. Oh, wow. So the place I always went on my bike as a kid, and then later, was Valley Martial Arts Supply. So I went into Valley Martial Arts Supply, and they had a couple of canes in there. And they were hickory, and they were heavier, and they had a grip on them and a couple of things. So I bought 2. I gave one to the Hapkido Grandmaster who was teaching me, and he's like, finally, somebody. And I just started researching and found Mark. I mean, this is well before the internet. And we just started talking on the phone, and he would make canes for us. And then as I developed my Warrior Combat cane system, Mark kept tweaking. And he said, hey, try this, hey, try that, hey, try this. And finally in 2000, when I opened Valhalla, I called him up, and I said, I want to do this and this and this with the cane. And that's the design we have.
Excellent.
So Mark makes all of our canes.
Wonderful.
And everything he does is particular to my system. And that's, so Mark and I met over the phone because of Valley Martial Arts Supply.
Amazing.
And now I talk to him 3 times a week, and we just try to figure out more ways to help people.
That's wonderful. Well, hopefully we'll have Mark on the show eventually. I'm sure he'll say some really kind things about you too. With all of your exposure with the medic and post-SWAT and firearms training and your philanthropy that you do, this amazing Wounded Warrior program, what is something that's shocked you over the years in any area of your experiences? Not because you're old, but because you're experienced and mature. And
I appreciate you throwing that in there.
That's pre-show, everyone. I hate that word, old. Anyway, what is something that's kind of rattled your core? Because you look at you and you're together, you're an amazing human specimen. I can tell you're extremely strong, and your core is probably not easily rattled, and you're always probably ready, aware. What is something, if it was spiritual or physical, that has rattled you?
One of the things that rattled me to the core, actually, was I started teaching. The first time I started teaching was 1990, when I retired from doing the bare knuckle.
Okay.
And I started teaching women's assault prevention, but through a request by UCLA Medical Center. And I taught for a year. And a guy that had worked for me, I owned a bar and a restaurant for a while in the 80s, and one of my bartenders was working for the LA County Sheriff's Department. And we were having a beer, and he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm teaching women's assault prevention, the women's mission and these things. And he said, that's great. He says, you're missing a whole side of this. I said, what side is that? He said, you're missing the people that perpetrate the crime. So he got me access to the jail. And he got me in on day visits to interview convicted rapists. And it ran the gamut. I mean, there was a couple of young guys who were crying and saying, I know she said no, but we'd been together forever, and I thought she loved me, and it ran the progression. They finally put me outside of a window talking to a guy who said, yeah, I did it. And I got 7 years, and I'll serve 4. I'm going to get out and do it again. And then he looked at me and says, do you know why? And I said, no. He said, because I own her soul. He said, every day for the rest of her life, when she looks in the mirror, because he had taken broken glass and cut her face. He said, every day for the rest of her life, when she looks in the mirror, she'll remember me. He said, I'm a lion on a hill. I look for the sick and the old and the weak, and I take them out. And I walked out of there shaking. And I said, just 30 seconds, turn the cameras off and put me in the room. And they said, trust us. They said, trust us. We would all like that same opportunity. I said, so what's going to happen with this guy? They said, he'll be out in 5 to 6 years.
And he'll do it again.
Right. And that's when I committed myself to teaching. That's what shifted my world to empowering anyone who needed it and didn't know it, who I could come across.
Which is most people.
Or anyone who had the desire to become empowered with their own ability to keep themselves safe. That's what gave me the passion for teaching.
Thank you for sharing that. It's people like you that we need out there to help even women that don't have awareness that they need that, to have awareness that they need that.
Yeah, that they need it, exactly.
There's just a stigma on being able to protect ourselves as women. It's like, be ladylike, but just worry about how you look, or you're overreacting, you're being paranoid. We have a right, and we are valuable enough to learn how to defend ourselves, and we need people like you that will teach us, On to a lighter topic. You were inducted into the Masters Hall of Fame this year, and what has that induction meant for you?
To be honest with you, it's been life-changing. I didn't know that there was a Hall of Fame, to be honest with you, until Grandmaster Shuey, until Mark brought it up this year. And he said, the number of years you've been teaching, the number of things you've done, what you're doing with the wounded, he said, this is something I want to nominate you for, unless you're not interested. And I said, had no idea. I'm terribly
You've
honored.
been busy.
And it reaffirmed for me that the martial arts lifestyle is worth living. Because it's a lifestyle of service. Once you get past a particular point of understanding your own abilities and inabilities, and then you can start helping other people, I think that is the path of a martial artist.
Yes.
And so it has completely reinvigorated me. Since the Hall of Fame induction on August 1st, I have raised $26,000 for canes for the wounded in the VA. And so that's given me an inventory that I can start right after the first of the year teaching another almost 200 in the first part of 2015. And I've started a whole new form. So I am now a novice in another system, because the other thing it affirmed for me and reminded me is we never stop learning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm now a new student. I'm the low man on the left side of the line, and it's been great. And I'm looking for any way to not just help the Hall of Fame, but to help our industry overall. We're an instant gratification world. If I can't look it up on my phone, I don't want to do it. This is the mentality people have.
That's so true.
This is the most athletic ability most people have anymore. And if we allow the instant gratification and the technology that's available to take away tradition and to take away respect for ourselves and others and discipline within ourselves, then society is lost.
That's true. Well, Tom, what is something that our audience wouldn't know about you?
Well, there's a lot, and they shouldn't. I just finished my second year of studying Oriental medicine at Emperor's College in Santa Monica.
Oh, very cool.
And I'm in the process so that I can become a doctor of Oriental medicine through Emperor's College.
Oh, exciting.
And this is also part of my evolution to martial arts. If you know how to break something, you better know how to fix it.
Correct.
So I'm studying acupuncture and herbal pharmacology. And my eventual interest is to open a practice in conjunction with Valhalla. So that we can train in a reality-based manner, full impact, full speed, and then I can fix all the damage that we create through the course of the day and the evenings.
Great, good. Well, and in closing, what can we expect from you and Valhalla and Wounded Warrior Cane System in 2015?
Just more and more and more. We're going to keep raising money, keep getting people to donate canes, so that I can start creating instructors from within the ranks of the VA and the Wounded Warrior Regiment with the Marine Corps, and hopefully nationalize this program with the VA and the Wounded Warrior Regiment so that we can have more of our combat cane system being taught all over the country.
Right, that's wonderful. Well, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. It was fun. Thank you.
Wonderful. What an amazing interview. Well, Masters Hall of Fame will definitely be following Tom Forman and all the amazing things that he does in our community. And this is Masters Hall of Fame World News. My name is Michelle Manu. We're filming from the Shiokan Dojo Martial Arts Center in Costa Mesa. If you'd like to reach Tom Forman, you may write us at worldnews@mastershalloffame.org, or you may reach Tom directly at www.valhallasecurity.com. That's VALHALLA. Thank you and goodbye.